There are athletes who win championships. There are athletes who break records. And then there are athletes who become something more than statistics. Athletes who become a part of a city's identity, a part of its heart. Derrick Rose was that athlete for Chicago. This is the rise and fall of Derrick Rose, the most heartbreaking career in Chicago sports history. And if you grew up watching him play, this one is going to hurt. Before we get into it, drop in the comments your favorite Derrick Rose memory. We read every single one. Let's go back to the beginning. Derrick Rose grew up in Englewood, one of the toughest neighborhoods on Chicago's South Side. Basketball was everything. From the time he picked up a ball, it was clear he was different. The speed, the explosiveness, the instincts. By the time he got to Simeon Career Academy, he was the most recruited high school player in the country. He chose Memphis for his one college season. And in the 2008 NCAA tournament, the country got its first real look at what Chicago already knew. Rose was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. A human going from 0 to 40 inches in the blink of an eye. Pure fast twitch muscle and instinct. Memphis went to the national championship game. Rose declared for the draft. The Chicago Bulls selected Derrick Rose first overall in the 2008 NBA draft. A Chicago kid going home. The city was electric. What followed was one of the greatest starts to a career in NBA history. In his first season, Rose was named Rookie of the Year. The Bulls had been irrelevant for years, wandering in the wilderness of the post-Jordan era. Suddenly, they had something to believe in again. Rose was attacking the basket with a fearlessness that Chicago hadn't seen since number 23 was doing it in the 90s. Year 2. Rose made his first All-Star game. The Bulls were building. The roster around him was getting stronger. Joakim Noah, Luol Deng, Carlos Boozer. Tom Thibodeau arrived as head coach and immediately turned Chicago into one of the league's best defensive teams. Then came Year 3 and one of the most dominant individual seasons in modern NBA history, 2010 to 2011. Derrick Rose was 22 years old. He led the Chicago Bulls to a 62-20 record, the best in the entire NBA. He averaged 25 points and 7.7 assists per game. He was unstoppable, magical, playing with a joy and confidence that made every Bulls game must-watch television. At the end of that season, Derrick Rose was named the NBA Most Valuable Player. At 22 years old, he became the youngest MVP in league history, a record that still stands today. When he called his mother to tell her, he said, "Mom, we finally made it." Chicago was convinced. This was their guy. This was the beginning of a dynasty. The post-Jordan drought was over. Derrick Rose was going to bring a championship back to the United Center. Then came April 28, 2012. The Bulls were playing the Philadelphia 76ers in the first round of the playoffs. The game was well in hand. Chicago was winning comfortably late in the fourth quarter. With under 2 minutes left, Rose drove to the basket, planted his left foot, and landed awkwardly. He grabbed his knee and went down, torn ACL. The United Center went silent. Players from both teams stood still. Everyone watching knew immediately something had just changed, something that couldn't be taken back. Rose sat out the entire 2012 to 2013 season. He was medically cleared to return during the year, but chose to wait until he was fully ready. Chicago debated that decision endlessly. Some supported him, others were frustrated. But nobody understood yet just how much that moment on April 28th had changed everything. He came back in 2013. But in November 2013, just months into his return, Rose tore the meniscus in his right knee, another surgery. Another season mostly lost. Then, in 2015, another torn meniscus, this time the other knee. 2 major knee injuries in 3 years since the ACL, each one taking something from him that he could never fully get back. The player who had been going 0 to 40 inches in the blink of an eye, that player was gone. The explosiveness that made him the youngest MVP in history. The first step that made defenders look foolish, the hang time that made arenas gasp. All of it slowly stripped away by injuries that had no mercy. What made it even more painful was watching the Bulls fall apart around him. The championship window that Rose had opened with his MVP season slowly closed. The roster aged, the coaching staff changed. By the time Rose was healthy enough to approximate his old self, the team around him wasn't good enough to contend. In 2016, the Bulls traded Derrick Rose to the New York Knicks. A transaction, a salary cap decision. The kid from Englewood, who had come home and given Chicago everything he had, sent away in a trade. Chicago was devastated. What followed was a decade of bouncing. New York, Cleveland, Minnesota, Detroit, New York again, Memphis. Rose kept playing, kept fighting, kept showing up every night, even as his body kept betraying him. In 2018, he scored 50 points for Minnesota in one of the most emotional performances in recent NBA history. In 2021, he helped the Knicks make the playoffs, finishing third in Sixth Man of the Year voting. Flashes of the old Derrick Rose. Reminders of what was, what could have been. On September 26, 2024, Derrick Rose announced his retirement from basketball, 16 years in the NBA, a career that began with one of the most brilliant three-year runs the league had ever seen and ended quietly, miles from home after being waived by the Memphis Grizzlies. He averaged 17.4 points per game for his career. 3 All-Star selections. Rookie of the Year, the youngest MVP in NBA history, and one of the greatest what-ifs in the history of the sport. Joakim Noah, Rose's teammate on those Bulls teams, said it best. Some of Rose's former teammates believe to this day that Chicago would have eventually won a championship had injuries not betrayed him. That those Bulls teams were good enough. That Rose was good enough. That the dynasty was right there. And the cruelest twist of fate took it away. But the story of Derrick Rose doesn't end with retirement. On January 24, 2026, in front of a packed United Center on a polar vortex night in Chicago, the Bulls retired Derrick Rose's number 1 jersey. He joined Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Jerry Sloan, and Bob Love in the rafters. The kid from Englewood who came home, gave everything he had, and watched his body take the rest, finally got his moment. Finally heard the United Center roar for him one last time. Rose stood on that court and said, "This journey was never about me. It was about everybody that found ways to come to my games. Somehow we had some type of vibration that connected. Chicago knows that vibration. Chicago felt it every time he touched the ball. Every time he exploded past a defender. Every time he reminded a city that one of their own could be the best player in the world. The rise and fall of Derrick Rose is the most heartbreaking story in Chicago sports history. Not because he failed, but because he was so close. Because Chicago could see exactly what was coming and then watched it get taken away. Number 1 is in the rafters now, right where it belongs. Drop in the comments your favorite Derrick Rose memory. We want to hear from you. And if you're a Chicago sports fan who never stops believing, hit subscribe. New content dropping constantly right here at Chicago Sports Vault. See you next video.